Welcome to another edition of the Stinnett Minute. I am at-large council member Kevin Stinnett, and today we have a very special show for you. With us today, we have Lexington Fayette-Urban County Government's newest employee, but even more so, our newest police chief. And I don't want to say he's new to the city, but we want to introduce Chief Lawrence Weathers and say welcome back. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you, and good to be here.
Well, tell the folks watching at home, I know there's been some publicity about your role as police chief, but tell us where you came from and how you got to be a police officer.
Okay. I was born and raised right here in Lexington, and policing is not something that I really had a big desire to do. I was working my way through college, and I saw an ad in the paper, and it was for police officers, and I had a job, but the job didn't have steady benefits. So I read that this job had benefits, so I showed up to take the test. And when I showed up to take the test, there were probably 1,300 people there to take the test.
Wow, 1,300.
And there were probably, yes sir, and there were probably 12 or 13 spots, vacancies that they had. So I took the test, and I guess the rest is history.
Well, 1,300 people, you were one of the finest obviously back then, and I think the folks, once they get to know in our community, which most still do, know we have a good chief to lead us forward. So you're a fellow defender, Bryan Station Defender graduate, so you went up through the ranks in schools. Now, you just came from the school system.
Yes sir.
Spent 3 years there, is that right?
No, just a year and a half at the, I worked for Lexington Police Department for 27 years. An opportunity came to be the Director of Law Enforcement for Fayette County Public Schools in 2016, and I applied for that, and I got that position.
I know they're going to miss you, but we're glad to have you back. So how has it been? This is your first week on duty as Lexington's police chief. How has it been so far?
It's been busy right now. I'm getting up to speed on things internally and some externally, and I suspect pretty soon that's going to flip-flop where we start concentrating on some things externally.
So coming back as police chief, what's been most surprising so far?
Either how old I've gotten or how young the officers have gotten. I think that's been the most surprising. A lot of things have changed, and when I left, they hadn't initiated the body cameras, but now they have those. They've got a lot of new systems, a lot of new computer systems. So a lot has changed that way, so I'm going to have to catch up with a lot of that. But there's still some things that have stayed the same.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the body cameras. We also have a new vapor dog named Tilly. So hopefully you've got to meet her already and seen her at work. That's a new addition last year.
I have seen Tilly at work.
Yeah, good. So the folks watching at home, and then also the fellow men and women of the police department, tell us a little bit about what your leader style principles are. What do you look to do here as Lexington's police chief over the next, we won't say decade, but however long you want to stay?
Well, and I'm going around to the roll calls and talking to the officers and civilian employees about my philosophy. Obviously, I'm more of a community oriented or community policing type officer. However, with that being said, I'm also all about the business. I think we have a duty to make sure that our community is safe, but we also have a duty to make sure that our citizens know that we're approachable and that policing is not the only thing that we're capable of doing. We're also capable of addressing a wide variety of problems, and if we can't address them, we're a good entity or agency to come to let people know that you can go elsewhere to get the help, or we can help you go somewhere to get the help.
Well, I've seen firsthand your work, obviously, over the last 27 years, and you have a varied background. Tell us some of the departments you've worked through and where you've been in charge, either as a lieutenant, commander, assistant chief, etc.
Okay. I spent probably about 4 years on patrol. After that, I was selected to be a DARE officer, so I went into the Fayette County Public Schools, mostly the elementary schools, a couple of the middle schools, and I taught DARE full time. I did that for a couple of years or so. After that, I got selected to be a part of a narcotics unit, so I did undercover narcotics, and I spent quite a bit of time doing that. Traveled throughout the city making drug cases. Sometimes we partner with other counties and investigate drugs coming into Lexington, investigate traffickers going out of Lexington into other communities. After that, I was promoted to sergeant, and we had a unit called the 4th Platoon, and they dealt with street level crime issues, some street level drug dealing issues, but mostly street level violent crime type issues. So we dealt with that. I spent a couple of years there. Then I went back as a sergeant into a narcotics unit. So I supervised the narcotics unit, got promoted to lieutenant, supervised the narcotics unit and our alcohol and beverage control unit as a lieutenant. And then I got transferred out of that after doing that for several years into internal affairs. And I spent 2 years doing internal affairs, investigating complaints and whatnot, and making sure the department adhered to policies and procedures. I then was promoted to the rank of commander, where I was assigned to Central Sector, which is the downtown area, and mostly inside a New Circle. I did that for a couple of years, and then was commander over training. Then over training, I got promoted. While I was in training, I got promoted to assistant chief, and then went to special operations, which has a clear unit, mounted, downtown bike patrol, and just all the special operations things that the police department does, and community services is within that as well.
Wow, sir, you really covered the whole very different departments within the police department. You've been in almost every position, it sounds like. So
just about.
I think you're qualified to run this department, run it effectively. So you mentioned one thing. I'm going to go back to community policing. Yeah. To tell us what that means, and then tell us what Lexington is doing to engage the citizens and implement some community policing strategies.
Well, community policing is not new to the Lexington Police Department. It's been around for quite some time. I think I first got trained in it in probably 1996. So it's been a while, around for a while. Some of the concepts have kind of changed. You know, before it was kind of focused on the community or assisting us with criminal issues. And now I think it's changed to where police are more focused on crime prevention, maybe if we can't do prevention, treatment, education. We dabble in a lot of things, and part of that is because in our job as policing, we make contact with so many different people, we develop so many different partnerships, and it only makes sense that when we're in a community that we're able to share our knowledge and partnerships with other people so that we can get the right help at the right time in the right area.
Well, I'm glad you say some of those things, because a lot of people think community policing is just being a police officer in the community and making sure we arrest folks for crimes they commit. But as you just alluded to, it's more about relationship building, having those relationships in different aspects. I know you mentioned the DARE program with kids. We have a police activities league that for youth sports. So there's a lot more that our officers are asked to do and do today than they did, say, 20 years ago. So I think you would agree that it's going to be a major tool in the tool belt as we move forward throughout our city.
Yes, sir. It's not something the police officers here in Lexington take lightly. I think they strive every day to try to do the best that they can, and they realize that whatever problems out there, we're not going to be able to arrest our way out of it. And what we need to do is we need to focus on not letting those problems happen and identify them as quickly as we can and getting them under control.
Well, I know this is your first week, but give us a typical day in the life of a Lexington police chief. What time do you get up? What time do you get home? And does your phone really ring all hours of night, or do you actually get some sleep?
I've seen it worse.
Yeah.
Being an assistant chief.
Yes, sir.
Here, I've seen it where there have been nights where you don't get any sleep. Here, it can be that like the first 2 days, there were things going on, things happening that I needed to know about. But my typical day starts at probably about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I probably prepare for work during that time, catching up on some of the news stories, catching up on some of the things that happened overnight. Then I get into the office sometime between 8:30, depending if I don't have a meeting or something. But schedule fills up pretty quick. Even if I don't have anything on it during the day, something will usually come up.
So what time do you actually get to go home at night and go to sleep? Or is there such thing?
And there's not a typical time. So I'm lucky because my wife, she used to be a parole officer. She understands some of these things. So we do a lot of sharing, which you have to do if you want if you want a good marriage. You have to talk, you have to communicate, and we do a lot of things together and share a lot of things. So we've learned already how to make time and how to make things work.
Well, I was going to ask next about your family. How have they adjusted to you being police chief? I know your wife, you described it as sharing, and that communication is important. What about your children?
It's important. It's important to communicate with your children as well. We're constantly talking to our kids. My son probably knows my schedule. My daughter probably knows my schedule better than I do. But we let them know the things we're going to be able to go to and the things we can't.
Well, sounds like you have family support. I know that's important, even in my role and other roles here at government. So we have an issue. We want to recruit young men and women from our community to be a police officer. One, what would you say to get them to want to apply and want to join? And two, how do they do it?
The police department is currently hiring right now. You can go to the Fayette Urban County Government website and look at that. You can even call down to the police department and ask to speak to a recruiter, and they'll get you in touch with that. You can go on our webpage, and you can find all kinds of information about that. What I would tell young people today is whatever you see on TV about policing, don't look at that. Come and check it out for yourself. I didn't have an idea, any clue about what policing was about when I applied, and I love it, and I'm glad I made that choice. There are a lot of different aspects to policing, so don't just go by what you hear. Look at it for yourself. It's like any other job. You expect to do a task, expect to perform well, and you will succeed.
I think one of the unique things about our police department, I know it's recognized as one of the best ones in the country, but
yes,
in terms of education, what we encourage our officers, what type of education, the college degrees, the masters, we really put the emphasis on that here, and I think that's paying big dividends for the men and women of the police department and the citizens of Lexington.
Yes, sir. Studies show that the more educated your officers are, the more resourceful and the more able they are to resolve conflict peacefully. So we stress education. We even pay for officers to obtain additional education, and we send them to training whenever we can.
Well, there you go, young people. If you want to be a police officer, go to our website, lexingtonky.gov, and look what our police department has to offer you and what you can offer your community. Chief, we wish you much success as the new police chief of Lexington. We know we're in good hands, sir, and thank you for being on my show today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been watching the Stinnett Minute. I am Council Member at Large, Kevin Stinnett. Thank you for watching.